Okay, this is the video for activity 25-3. We're checking your understanding. I'm going to go over the answers for number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So here we go. This is number 10A. And it says, gives us that arc. That's A right here is labeling arc GN. So they give us that's 40 degrees, and they give us that B, the measure of B, is 80 degrees, and B represents RI. Then they want us to find the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2. Well, angle 1 is pretty obvious. We've got the formula right here. The angle is equal to half the sum of the arcs. So the angle that we're trying to find is the measure of angle 1. Let me get my pen going. The measure of angle 1 is equal to half the sum of the arcs. And the two arcs are 40 and 80. So the measure of angle 1 is equal to half of 40 plus 80. I believe that's 120. So the measure of angle 1 is equal to half of 120, which is 60 degrees. So we found the measure of angle 1 to be 60 degrees. Okay, now angle 2, we've got a couple of options. Angle 2, I just want to point out so that you don't overlook it. The measure of angle 2 right here is going to equal the half this arc plus this arc. Now you don't really have to know what each one of these arcs measure, you just have to know what their sum is. And it's not real hard to figure out what their sum is because their sum, if I can get it, let's see. So the measure of arc GR plus the measure of arc NI is going to equal to whatever's left when we take 360 and we take 120 away. 360 minus 120, because it's the rest of the circle. So 360 minus 120, that's what, 240 degrees? So we know that GR plus NI equals 240 degrees. Now we don't know that, we don't know what each one of them equal, but we know that together they equal 240. And that's all we need is their sum. So you could find the measure of angle 2 by taking the angle and saying it's equal to half the sum. So we found out that half of 240 is 120. Now, none of that was necessary because what kind of angles are angle 1 and angle 2? Well, hopefully you see right here that they are a linear pair, which means that they are supplementary and adjacent. So we could say that 180 minus 60 would give us the measure of angle 2. 180 is what supplementary means, and that's what a linear pair is equal to. So you take angle 1 away, which is the 60 degrees, and you get the measure of angle 2 is 120. So that's how you could find the measure of angle 1. We found out that was 60. The measure of angle 2, we found out that was 120. Okay, so now we're going to do, we need to erase this at least. I'm going to erase this and this and this and this so I can draw on my circle again. I may need to erase that to have some room somewhere, but we'll see. Let's get a brand new color so it won't bleed in. Let's go with a lovely shade of brown. The measure of arc A, they're telling me, is 40 degrees. And the measure of angle 1 is 65 degrees. And then they want me to find the measure of arc B. Okay, well, we have a formula that says the angle is equal to half the sum of the arcs. Okay, I just keep going back to that over and over and over again. The angle right here is 65 degrees. And one of the angles is 40. And the other, I'm sorry, one of the arcs is 40, and the other arc is labeled B. So this is the equation that I have, and I have to solve it. Now I can distribute that 1/2, but I would much rather get rid of it by multiplying by 2. And 65 times 2, I believe, is 130. And those two cancel out, leaving me 40 plus B. Subtract 40 from both sides, and you end up with B is equal to 90. So we get 90 degrees. Then it says the measure of arc GR plus the measure of arc NI. They're doing the same thing that we did a while ago. So we don't know how much GR is by itself. We don't know how much NI is by itself. But we know that GR plus NI is equal to 360 minus 130. Because that's what the sum of these two are. These two together are 130. So this is what's left when you do 360 minus 130. So what would that be? 230. So GR plus NI is equal to 230. Okay, let's go to part C and D. So if GR is 100 and NI is 160, now notice that that doesn't look right. GR appears to be bigger than NI. That's why they say on most of these drawings, or at the beginning of the book, they said not drawn to scale. So really what we should do is push these points GR closer together and push NI closer around the circle so that it would appear to be as just a little bit more to scale, but it doesn't matter in terms of solving it. So they give us these 3 arcs, and then they want us to find the measure of angle 1. Well, we could do one of 2 things. We could find the measure of angle 2 because we have the 2 arcs. So all we would have to do is add those 2 together. We would just say 260 is the sum of those 2 arcs. Take half of that, and we would get the measure of angle 2. So the measure of angle 2 is equal to 130. If 2 is equal to 130, then this one right here would have to be 50. So that's one way you could certainly do it. Another way that you could do it is if we've got all of this known, then we can find arc A by taking 360, take away the 160, you get 200, take away the 100, take away the 80. That means that A right here is 20 degrees. So take all of these known angles away from 360, you get 20 degrees. Now that we know that this one's 20 degrees and this one's 80 degrees, we can find the measure of angle 1 by taking half of the sum of the 2 intercepted arcs for that angle. So half of 100 is 50. So again, there's more than one way to find it. So the measure of angle 1 is 50. Okay, so now in this one, we have A, and let me clean this up a little bit. We have A. Oh, that one won't go away. We have A is 4x minus 4. B is 100. And the measure of angle 1 right here is 5x plus 3. Okay, so it says write an equation and then solve it for x. I'm going to change colors. So, I'm going to use this same formula right here. The angle, 5x plus 3, that's the angle, is equal to half the sum of the arcs. So the angle is equal to half 4x minus 4 plus 100. Okay, let's clean some stuff up. 5x plus 3, that's simplified. 4x minus 4 plus 100. I can do negative 4 plus 100. I believe that's 96. All right, now I've got two choices. I can either distribute the 1/2 or I can multiply both sides by 2. Again, I would rather multiply both sides by 2, but that's just me. You can easily distribute the 1/2 and get the same problem. Multiply this side by 2, and the 2 and the 1/2 cancel out. Multiply this side by 2, you have to distribute. So that gives me 10x plus 6 is equal to 4x plus 96. I'm going to get the x's on the left-hand side, so I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Okay, then I'm going to continue over here. 6x plus 6 is equal to 96. Subtract 6 from both sides. And then divide everything by 6. And x is equal to, I'm going to get my calculator out so that I don't make a mental error, because I cannot be trusted to do arithmetic in my head accurately. So x is equal to 15. So they ask for two things. They ask for the equation. So I'm going to say 5x plus 3 equals 1/2. 4x plus 96, and that gives us x is equal to 15. Okay, let's see what else we got. This is number 11. What's the value of x? Well, that's pretty straightforward. We're using the formula. The angle is equal to half the sum of the arcs. So x is listed as the angle. It's equal to half the sum of the arcs. And the sum of the arcs looks like it's 180. So x is equal to 90. How can you describe the two chords inscribed in this circle? Okay, well, if x is 90, then the chords are perpendicular. And then for number 13, write an expression to determine the value of x. Okay, does it ask me to then solve it? Maybe I cut it off. I don't know. Write an expression to determine the value of x. The value of x is equal to the 1/2 the sum of the arcs. Okay, now I want you guys to, I'm just going to point this out. It asked for an expression, and I wrote an equation. Okay, so really and truly, what I should have just written is 1/2 50 plus 20. That is an expression. Okay, leave the equal sign off if they ask for an expression. I'm going to go check the answer key real quick and see if they left it like that, or did they go ahead and write the answer down. I didn't look at the answers when I started working these. Number oh, they broke their own rule. They wrote an equation. How interesting. Okay, so they didn't go ahead and finish solving it, and yes, we can now correct the Springboard book, and based on their answer, they wrote an equation to determine the value of x. So this is an equation, this is an expression. The only difference is one has an equal sign, one does not. Okay, so I did that one, and now let's go to 14 and 15. 14 wants us to find the measure of arc AC. Okay, so again, I'm going back to that same formula. The angle is equal to half the sum of the arcs. So based on what I have right here, if I'm looking for this measurement right here, I'm going to use these two arcs to find this angle. So all I did was say, okay, in this picture, X right here is the angle that we can find, and that's equal to half of the two arcs. One of them is labeled W, and that sure does look like a capital W, and it should be a lowercase w. The measurement W plus the measure of arc AC. Now, they want us to find the measure of AC. Now, most of you are wanting to be able to say, oh, the answer is 20, the answer is 100, the answer is 16, and the answer is not going to be a number this time because they don't give me enough values. They don't give me any values. So my answer, AC right here, the measure of AC, is going to be an expression. So what I have right here is what we call a literal equation because it has several variables. And all I can do is rearrange it so that it's solved for AC. So I first of all need to get rid of this 1/2. So I know I can get rid of 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2. That cancels out. So 2x is equal to W plus the measure of AC. And in order to get the measure of AC by itself, I need to get rid of the W. So I'm going to subtract W from both sides. So 2x minus W is equal to the measure of AC. So often we as students, because most of the problems that we do involve numerical answers, we think that if we can't get a numerical answer, then it's not an answer. Well, we do have an answer right here. It just happens to be in terms of X and W. So as soon as I know what the measure of X and W are, I'll have an answer for arc AC. Okay, last one. We're going to get T we're going to solve for T. So we have to start off with what's the relationship between these things. The angle is equal to half the sum of the arcs. So I just did a substitution. What goes in for the value of the angle? 8t. Bring down the 1/2. One of the arcs is 3t plus 2. The other arc is 15t minus 14. So 8t is equal to 1/2 times, simplify all this inside. I believe that comes down to 18t. Positive 2 minus 14, I believe that's negative 12. Okay? It's totally up to you. You can distribute the 1/2. I just don't like working with fractions, so when I get a chance, I'm going to get rid of them. So I'm going to get rid of that fraction by multiplying by 2, and that becomes 16t is equal to 18t minus 12. Subtract 18t from both sides. And I'm going to get the answer right up here. 16t minus 18t is negative 2t, and that's equal to negative 12. Divide both sides by negative 2, and t is equal to 6. Be careful and watch and make sure they don't want you to do anything with t. They don't this time. Sometimes it says solve for t and find the measure of the angle or whatever. They didn't this time. But now that we know what t is, you could certainly go in and plug it in and find the measure of both of the arcs and the angle. Okay, I hope that helps.